American politics has seen its share of embarrassing moments, but what's happening to JD Vance right now is something else entirely. It's not a slip-up. It's not a minor misstep. It's a slow, painful, very public unraveling, made even more brutal because it's coming directly from the one man JD Vance has built his entire identity around, Donald Trump. For years, Vance has reshaped his personality, rewired his beliefs, and practically rebuilt his public character to please Trump. But leaked reports, viral clips, and insider accounts now paint a far uglier picture. Trump isn't lifting JD Vance up. He's mocking him, rejecting him, and humiliating him right in front of the country. And once you connect the dots, the downfall becomes impossible to ignore. JD Vance didn't just support Trump. He attached himself to Trump, reshaped himself for Trump, changed his worldview entirely just to stay in Trump's orbit. Remember, JD once compared Trump to America's Hitler. But the moment he saw a path to power, everything flipped. Overnight, Vance became a full-time Trump loyalist, echoing his talking points, mimicking his tone, repeating his phrases like a political echo machine. On Capitol Hill, insiders say JD Vance is viewed as desperate, overeager, and performative. Republicans privately mock how he walks into every room trying to guess what Trump wants him to say. One aide reportedly said, "He acts like he's auditioning for Trump every day." But the most humiliating part, Trump doesn't even like him. Multiple insiders claim Trump refers to Vance as awkward, boring, and a clinger. The more Vance tries to please Trump, the more Trump pulls away. That obsession didn't make JD powerful, it made him weak. The real cracks showed up through leaks, especially from ABC journalist Jonathan Karl, who revealed a bombshell. Trump and Steve Bannon were privately mocking JD Vance's ambition. That whole Trump 2028 illegal third-term rumor. According to Karl, it wasn't about trolling Democrats. It was about trolling JD Vance. Trump reportedly told allies he'd rather run again himself than let JD become the 2028 nominee. Bannon even bragged to The Economist about helping push the idea just to mess with JD's hopes. Other insiders say Trump sees JD as a follower, not a leader, a political lightweight, someone trying way too hard. Even Marco Rubio is seen as more legitimate for the future than JD Vance. Every rumor, every leak pointed to one brutal truth. The future JD imagined for himself was never real. Private tension can stay hidden for a while, but the moment it reaches the public stage, nobody can miss it. That's exactly what happened with JD Vance. The disrespect Trump used to keep behind closed doors started appearing in broad daylight, and the cameras caught every second of it. One of the first big warning signs was JD's bizarre Thanksgiving speech, a rambling, awkward rant about turkey that made the entire room go quiet. Viewers online didn't know whether to laugh or cringe. The clip spread across social media within hours, and people immediately pointed out something painfully obvious. JD Vance simply doesn't know how to connect with an audience. And standing behind him in that same clip, Donald Trump looked visibly irritated, shifting his weight, glancing away, acting like he couldn't wait for the speech to end. Then came the viral body language moments, and they were even worse. In one clip, JD tried greeting Trump, only for Trump to walk straight past him without a glance. In another, JD attempted to chime in during a press moment, and Trump physically turned his back mid-sentence. No acknowledgement, no courtesy, no attempt to hide the dismissal. Supporters noticed. Commentators noticed. Even right-wing influencers pointed out how uncomfortable Trump seemed around JD. The dynamic didn't look like a mentor and protege. It looked like a boss tolerating someone he didn't respect. Meanwhile, when holiday food disasters featuring Marjorie Taylor Greene and Stephen Miller dominated MAGA Twitter, JD tried to join the conversation and got completely ignored. His jokes fell flat. His comments didn't land. It was another reminder that he simply doesn't have the charisma or presence needed to lead a movement. These weren't isolated incidents. They were symptoms, public signals of a relationship cracking in real time. And the moment Trump finally weaponized that tension, The humiliation hit a level JD couldn't hide anymore. Nothing revealed the power imbalance between Donald Trump and JD Vance more brutally than the moment Trump walked on stage with Trump 2028 hats. Everyone in the room knew a third term is unconstitutional. Everyone knew the idea was absurd, but Trump didn't care. This wasn't about legality, this was about dominance, and JD Vance was the target. Trump began handing out the hats like trophies, laughing and soaking in the attention while the crowd cheered. Cameras flashed, supporters screamed, reporters scrambled, and JD Vance stood a few steps back, smiling nervously, unsure where to look. He thought he was there to support Trump. He didn't realize he was about to be humiliated. Then it happened. Trump turned toward JD with a grin, held up the 2028 hat and said, "You're okay with this, right, JD?" The sentence felt casual, almost playful, but the meaning was unmistakable. Trump wasn't asking JD for permission. He was mocking him, testing him, daring him to disagree. JD's reaction told the entire story. His smile twitched, his eyes dropped for half a second, and then he forced a nod, pretending everything was fine. But everyone watching could feel the awkwardness crawl across the stage. Trump had just publicly shoved JD out of his own fantasy future, and JD didn't push back at all. Even House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries commented on it later, saying the moment looked like Trump, humiliating his own vice presidential hopeful on national television. Insiders later confirmed what viewers already suspected. The stunt was intentional. Trump wanted to show that JD Vance wasn't a successor. He wasn't a partner. He wasn't even a serious contender for 2028. He was someone Trump could embarrass and would still obediently nod along. And that single moment shattered whatever illusion JD had left. JD Vance still tries to project confidence, but everyone inside Trump world knows the truth. He was never going to be Donald Trump's chosen successor. Not for vice president. Not for 2028. Not for anything that requires real trust or actual influence. The problem isn't JD's resume. It isn't his policy positions. It isn't even his past criticisms of Trump. Trump doesn't care about old insults. The real issue is simple. Donald Trump doesn't respect JD Vance. Trump evaluates people almost entirely by their crowd appeal, charisma, and ability to dominate a room. JD Vance fails every one of those tests. His speeches are stiff. His energy feels forced. His attempts at humor fall flat. Even his strongest supporters admit he struggles to connect emotionally with voters. Republican strategists describe JD as politically wooden, performative, not authentic. A man trying too hard to be someone he's not, and Trump notices all of it. He can't stand politicians who look needy or clingy, and JD Vance radiates desperation. Trump admires confidence, swagger, unpredictability, traits he sees in people like Marco Rubio, Elise Stefanik, and even his political enemies more than he sees in JD. One insider put it perfectly. Trump doesn't want a fan. He wants a fighter. JD Vance comes off like a supporter trying to imitate Trump rather than someone capable of leading a movement. Trump thinks JD is too quiet, too stiff, and not someone the base would follow without Trump standing next to him. Some reports even suggest Trump floated the illegal third term idea partly because he'd rather talk about breaking the Constitution than hand the movement to JD Vance. In Trump's eyes, JD isn't a successor. He's a placeholder, a useful foot soldier, but never the general he desperately wants to be. And once that reality set in, the panic in JD's camp began to explode. The moment JD Vance finally understood that Donald Trump wasn't choosing him for anything meaningful, his entire operation shifted into panic mode. What had once looked like a carefully planned political rise suddenly turned into a frantic scramble for relevance. Every public appearance felt rushed, awkward, and strangely desperate, as if JD was trying to convince the world he still mattered before anyone noticed the truth. People inside Republican circles say the change was obvious. JD began flying to states he had no real connection to, delivering speeches that landed with a dull thud. In one event, half the audience stared at their phones. At another, people quietly slipped out of the room before he even finished. The more JD tried to show strength, the more obvious his weakness became. That's when things got worse. Trump's team quietly decided to send JD Vance to Tennessee, where the GOP was unexpectedly struggling in a district Trump once won easily. The problem: Democrat Aftyn Behn was running a shockingly competitive race, and her message about grocery costs, utility bills, and affordable health care was resonating with voters across party lines. When Aftyn appeared on Jen Psaki's MSNBC show, she explained why lifelong Republicans were telling her directly, "You'll be the first Democrat I vote for." Meanwhile, JD's own appearances looked hollow by comparison: forced jokes, stiff delivery, and a complete inability to inspire confidence. Behind the scenes, Trump advisors grew concerned. One insider reportedly said JD was hurting more than helping. Another advised minimizing his stage time, worried he was dragging the narrative down at a moment when Trump needed momentum, not dead weight. The movement JD tried so hard to inherit was cracking, and JD wasn't rising with it. He was sinking right along with the collapse. While JD Vance was slipping deeper into desperation, something unexpected was happening on the other side of the political map. A challenger began rising, not with billionaire funding, not with flashy rallies, but with something far more dangerous to the GOP machine: authentic connection. That challenger was Aftyn Behn, and her surge exposed everything JD Vance lacked. Aftyn wasn't talking about culture wars or loyalty pledges. She wasn't trying to imitate anyone. She focused on the everyday struggles that hit voters in the gut: grocery prices, utility bills, rent hikes, and the constant squeeze on working families. Her message didn't need theatrics. It didn't need a performance. It landed because it was real, and the numbers started shifting. A race in a district Donald Trump carried by more than 20 points suddenly tightened. Republican voters began showing up at Aftyn's events, telling her they were tired of being sold out by the billionaire boys club funding her opponent. Some even emailed saying, "You'll be the first Democrat I ever vote for." Meanwhile, JD Vance looked like a panic button the GOP had slapped at the last second. His speeches fell flat. His energy felt forced. His attempts to attack Aftyn only highlighted how disconnected he was from the issues motivating voters. Aftyn's appearance on Jen Psaki's MSNBC show was the nail in the coffin. She spoke about cutting Tennessee's grocery tax, expanding healthcare access, and lowering costs. She sounded grounded, credible, human, the exact opposite of JD's stiff, scripted, try-hard persona. The contrast was brutal. Aftyn Behn was rising on authenticity. JD Vance was sinking under artificial loyalty. Her momentum didn't just challenge his message, it exposed the emptiness of his entire political identity. And that set the stage for a downfall he couldn't outrun. JD Vance's collapse didn't come from a single scandal or a sudden explosion. It came from something far more revealing: a slow, public erosion of credibility, fueled by the very man he hoped would crown him as the future of the Republican Party, Donald Trump himself. The signs were there all along. JD built his political identity entirely around Trump, convinced that blind loyalty would eventually elevate him. Instead, that loyalty turned into a trap. Trump mocked him privately, dismissed him publicly, and humiliated him on stage with the infamous Trump 2028 stunt that instantly exposed the real hierarchy. JD wasn't a partner. He wasn't a successor. He was an accessory, useful, disposable, and easily ignored. While JD clung to Trump's shadow, the political world shifted without him. The movement he banked everything on started to fracture. MAGA dominance cracked. Younger voters tuned out. Even longtime conservatives began searching for voices with real authenticity, voices like Aftyn Behn, who spoke to voters' lives instead of Trump's ego. JD Vance, meanwhile, was left delivering awkward speeches to half-empty rooms, trying to revive momentum that had never truly existed. His attempts to look relevant only highlighted how much relevance he'd already lost. Trump's advisors saw it. Republican strategists saw it, and eventually, voters saw it too. JD wasn't falling because of a mistake. He was falling because people finally realized there was nothing real to hold on to. No charisma, no leadership, no independent vision. Just a man hoping Trump would give him a future that Trump never intended to share. In the end, JD Vance wasn't taken down by his enemies. He was undone by the truth. You can't rise by living in someone else's shadow, because when that shadow disappears, so do you.